some other funders, the Fine Foundation, the Allegheny Regional Asset District, and SNAG, and Pennsylvania Council on Aging. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Megan Riley, who we're very, very excited to recognize as the 2011 Raphael Prize winner.
Very excited to be here. So I'm going to go through kind of my evolution of work and then take questions at the end. So we go to the first slide. I started a couple years ago. Just to give you a little brief background, I come from a non-design, non-art place. I studied economics and French at Berkeley, and my initial intention with that was to become an international business person or do work with NGOs, and I was very into sociology and feminism, and wanted to work with people, honestly, to do like social justice work or just community economic development work. So I graduated from college and worked for a homeless shelter doing programming, and I also worked part-time at a think tank doing research in housing law and helping to eradicate poverty and homelessness. And so completely different, but it kind of, as we go through, maybe we can see some of that informing my work. So when I started doing metalsmithing,
do you have power source?
yes, I do. Do you want me to go get it?
I'll go get it. Is it in the bag?
It's in my laptop bag,
Computer bag.
I believe so. So hopefully it won't get cut off. We have a lot of images. So I brought when I started taking classes, just cobbling together an education basically through California College of Art has a metalsmithing program, taking classes like on Saturdays and the evenings through local community centers, Revere Academy. I was in the Bay Area at that time, San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland area, and just taking classes and just for fun, because I really have always loved making things. I started making jewelry when I was 6, and my mom has always been really encouraging me to go to bead stores and learn how to attach the clasp or just learn little things. And I was always making and sculpting and Fimo, and I remember I made my first line of Fimo jewelry in 5th grade and presented it to the class. And I had it on felt, and it was a cohesive body of work actually, and it was all neon and hot pink and orange and yellow, and it was a mini menagerie of animals, and I made them into little earrings and brooches, and so I've always had this interest, but I never had thought about pursuing it as a career. So while I was doing my community economic development work and housing work, I was also taking classes and just getting more and more into it. And this is one of the first pieces I ever made, and it's all sterling silver with fine silver woven, and it was just creating a sterling silver form, so learning how to form a ring and basic fabrication, and then also I was really into textiles because I was working with the homeless ladies, and part of the program they brought in was learning crocheting and knitting as therapy, and so I was learning from them, and I was learning techniques and also teaching them. So I was learning knitting and teaching them knitting, and some of the ladies knew crochet and they would teach me crochet, and I just kind of got a lot into making things. And so when I started working in metal, I wanted to incorporate that, the weaving and kind of the just because I use them in everything. I always have them in my purse, and I'm always playing with them, or they're always a quick fix because I don't sew that much for something falling apart. So I think it's such a functional item. So I just wanted to make some beautiful ones. So I started making sterling silver ones. Again, they sent like this big with steel welding wire, and getting them to be even more and more functional versus making them a copper, which is very malleable. So it doesn't hold its form or have the spring like the steel does. So then I started working, taking all the basic classes, fabrication and wax, casting and, enameling and forming. So from one of my classes, I was taking this lost wax casting at the community center called the Crucible in Oakland. And it's, it's a nonprofit. It's kind of similar to society. And they were just really encouraging. It was very affordable. They had nice night classes, great teachers. So one of my teachers who I was working with, David Thorpe, he asked me to work for him. And so this is me starting to work in a studio and learning, production, learning how he ran his business. And I would do wax injection for 8 hours and sprue, and we would cast everything in-house, and it was extremely dirty, but really fun. Obviously, we have our fox for skull hanging, and I would look at it and play music, and it was just a great environment. That time, I had just broken off from working for the government and doing papers. I had started my own consulting practice and policy work, so I had the freedom of working 30 hours a week only, and I had one of my major clients was Habitat for Humanity, so I could work for them and then also support myself and then work for him 10 to 20 hours a week and learn. This became my education, as well as taking design classes and trying to supplement my metalsmithing education with more design and color theory and just painting and just figuring out how to make things beautiful. Next. So then I started to bring tools into my home and create my own studio. Bought a torch and my first bench, and just wanted to explore creating my own line. This is one of the first pieces I did for my first collection, and it's all sterling silver, fabricated with 18 karat yellow gold woven onto it, and it's all very detailed and tight and took time, and it's very structured, which I think is something I find a lot in my work, since I come from an economics background and use math a lot in what I'm doing. Next piece. So I'm just bringing some examples, just showing some examples of this work. This was in about 2008 when I first debuted it at the Contemporary Craft Market in Santa Monica, which is a big show, and I got journeyed in. It was my first time, and didn't realize that it was pretty good, pretty big deal. So, I had a good response there, but it was October 2008 when all the banks crashed. So I was dealing with that a lot in my consulting work because I worked a lot of big corporate banks and did a lot of foreclosure work, helping people not go into foreclosure, honestly. So it was really interesting to see the market people's response to expensive, fine jewelry work, and it was good. I had a good response, but it still wasn't where I wanted to be in terms of creating a collection. So next, doing more. This is all part of the same thing. Putting together a whole collection and trying to make all the pieces work together, so people would want to buy a necklace and earrings, or could see that the whole thing went together. This was my first time ever doing that as a maker. It was making one piece or making a couple pieces and making the safety pins and just doing a series. This time I tried to create a whole collection. That was the goal I set out for myself. Next piece. And I just kind of put this in to show you some of the work I was doing, which is very detailed and fine. And, making trying to finish pieces as beautifully as possible. And this is kind of the first time I really worked on that. These are just some of them in my studio and how they are in your hand and size. Then I started playing. So I played with that, and then I pick up new materials. It's interesting to hear Bon speak about finding things. So I started playing with, found little watch parts, and it was during the time when like steampunk was really big, and just kind of thinking about a little bit more about fashion. I saw a lot of this happening, and so how could I adapt that aesthetic and make it for me? So doing like riveting little parts and adding chain and kind of putting things together and trying to make a little bit more affordable collection of work that wasn't in the $2,500 to $1,500 range, but more in the under $300 range. So kind of doing more chain and manufacture chain and putting rivets and kind of making draping pieces that were interesting, but it really wasn't, it was all manufactured parts I just put together and just took wire and made little rivets. But I wanted to make it into an interesting shape. And this is when I started getting more and more into shape, and it's draping onto your body. And then also keeping up, this is like my homework, or my scribbles, per se. And I just do this in my free time. I take steel welding wire and make little fibulas and try to think about shape and how they work and are they functional and does this curve help make it more interesting. And it relates back to my earlier work with safety pins. And then also I liked started getting interested in more photography at this point and how to arrange things and put together a little collection of series of things, how it looks together. Next piece. And then around 2009, I started, I was looking at my Rio Grande catalog, and I was looking at purchasing materials, and I noticed that they started having this 24 karat gold plated nylon coated steel. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, and the price point is really great. So I'm gonna just buy some and play with it. And I bought a bunch of heishi, Japanese tube beads, and I'll just see how this relates. And I was doing the fine work, I was doing commissions like wedding rings and stuff at that point. And so I debuted a couple pieces at the San Francisco Gift Fair, along with my fine jewelry work, and had a huge response. Had a bunch of museum stores like San Francisco Museum of Modern Art purchased my work, Museum of Craft and Folk Art in LA purchased my work. It wasn't a very well attended show, but I was getting the accounts that I wanted, and this kind of blossomed into me focusing more and more on this material and finding it to be affordable, but I could also play with it. I could experiment. So I was doing more, woven, taking teardrops, making teardrop shapes, and this is actually 5 chains, and then I weave them with the more teardrop shapes. So it becomes like this woven material, and you can manipulate it, but it looks like a flat piece. And then just this is my second one basically. I'm going to go through a couple pictures. And this was, just putting together forms. And so it's light, and this one is big, down to here. And just playing, like this interlocks here, and this interlocks here. And here's the little connections. Next piece. This one is each wire is actually, each loop is one wire woven on itself to create like a little volumetric form. And so figure out how to make new links. I was really into chain making and thinking about how does this look, how can I make something production under $200 for retail that's still interesting and I like and will wear, but I can still have fun with. Next piece. And then doing, adding in using the same forms like the tubing, and then this piece is all hinged with the tubing. so it moves on your body and can fold. And this all can fold up. So I think that's really interesting, and I keep playing with that still. This is all one piece of wire woven on itself. So I take like yards of wire and just sit there and form this, and then it eventually forms into a cuff bracelet. So I'm able to do it quickly and pretty cheaply, but still have, the utmost important thing, having good design, trying to keep that awareness as I'm making things. These are just some exclamation point earrings. Next piece. Next piece. Next piece. And at that point I started, getting more and more counts, building my reputation with museum stores and getting more business because of my production work. So I've got a studio in San Francisco. It was my first time having my own studio outside of the house, and I was really excited about it. And it was just great because I had a community of people in the studio. It was a shared studio with a welder, another jewelry artist who's more into art jewelry, and then also a painter and a sculptor. And we would all be there late at night just working and talking and thinking. It was just the first time I really had an artist community of my own to really influence me and encourage me and keep me going with my work. And from that I started developing more and more lines with my production work. So this one's all with garnets and 14 karat gold fill and then nylon coated steel. So kind of, what I'm doing is each season, every 6 months, I'm on like a fashion season. I'm creating a new line of work. And that's in addition to me creating one-of-a-kind pieces. So it's always a back and forth. I'm creating this new work every 6 months, but I'm also creating pieces on the side that are honestly in reference to a lot of my production work. And they all inform, it's a back and forth constantly of figuring out it's never like, it's chicken before the egg, honestly. It's never like, this came before this. It's all happening at the same time. But as we go through, you'll see that it feels all really related when I'm making it. So this was my next line of jewelry. Go to the next one. Kind of a little bit lighter, less large, and a little bit, I was looking at a lot more fine jewelry, I guess, but I still wanted to do it my way. So starting to incorporate stones, like this is with pearls and the 24 karat gold plated steel. I wanted to make things that were affordable but still interesting. And also, honestly, my mom loves pearls, and I never made anything with pearls, so this kind of started me down that path. These are called Vertigo, because they look like the Vertigo poster. Again with the garnets. And then this is, while I'm doing that work for production and marketing that to museum stores and galleries for sales, I started doing this series of work for myself. And I just wanted to play with, graphic, everything in black and white, and just do some more fun pieces just for me that were one of a kind. So this is like an Elizabethan collar. And it's great because it feels so nice on your body. I got to make something, while I was making, 10 pearl necklaces every day, I got to, sit and work a couple hours on this and make something that took a couple more hours of time and was a little bit more thoughtful. And again, playing with shape, and I guess I work a lot in collections, so I'm thinking about, I'll make a series of pieces and I want them all to relate. So again, this is related to the last point. So I did everything in black and white, everything really linear. This is all, again, 3D, like pyramid shapes. And it still is very wearable, but it's a little bit more special and one of a kind feeling than the pearl work. And this one is like my version of a cameo. I wanted to explore that and try to manipulate forms that were huge but really comfortable still to wear on your body. And this one is kind of a lot of the start of me doing, I would say, bigger work. So this is all a 3D cylinders. And so when you hold it up, it's formed like a big cylinder that's all connected and articulated. But when you wear it, it's flat. It moves from that 3D to 2D on your body. Just a more series of large areas, kind of like thinking about it a lot, is having these things relate to the neck pieces. So trying to, again, kind of always thinking, I guess, in collections in that way. And at that time, I joined the Metal Arts Guild in San Francisco, and they had asked me to become the treasurer for the guild. And so this started, it kind of exposed me more to art jewelry. And we put on an exhibition every year. It was non-jury, it was open to every member. All you had to do was submit a piece. And so that year, the show was titled Urban Renaissance. And this is my first time doing really an art jewelry piece, a one-of-a-kind piece like this. So I was really excited. I'd never done it. And this is the piece that came out. It's titled Critical Mass. Based on the bike movement in San Francisco that's kind of like a protest to cars, and it just was, and it's again a really big piece, and it's playing with the same materials, but making something light and wearable, but it's just more special. It has more thought behind it as well. And then doing material, just keep playing with techniques. This is another piece I'm doing that's woven. It's actually knit around with the nylon coated steel. And I'm knitting it on like a children's toy, basically. Yeah, like one of the schools. So I've been buying, I guess I try different techniques. So this is one I've been playing with, and I buy spools of all these different sizes. And I've been making cuffs and huge chains and knotting them after I'm done, and just still playing with what I'm doing. Adding in stones so it relates more to the pearl and garnet work. And then after I'd done the critical mass piece for the Metal Arts Guild, I had been contacted by Harriet Estelle Berman, and she was kind of encouraging me to apply for some things with that work. So I had applied to the Lark Jewelry books for 500 silver designs, I believe, and I got published in that. So it kind of encouraged me to start doing more and more one-of-a-kind work. So this is another piece that was born out of that. Kind of, I think, also still relates a lot to the critical mass piece I did. This one's titled Misconnections, which is if you ever go on Craigslist, they have this section called Misconnections, which is like the most fascinating thing to read ever. It's a lot about like woulda, shoulda, coulda, it's all these missed opportunities. And people trying to reach out into the ether to connect with other people, or just some idea of what they think of that person as. So they'll post things like, I saw man seeking female. I saw you on the train, you're wearing a red sweater. I wish I had spoken with you. And I've actually had friends connect with partners this way, which is, it works. I'm just so fascinated by it. I think it's so interesting. So I created this piece in response to that. It's telephone wires crossing and crisscrossing, and then some just left off to the side that are just out in the ether. They're not related to anything and just out there. So just kind of still exploring that work. And I think it's also really social, which I think relates a lot to the critical mass piece, which is a very social piece, because it's about a social movement. It's about people getting together and in a very chaotic way. It's not organized. I just put a little close-up of the class. It's a little telephone, toggle clasp. And I made all the little structure, the forms that where they connect are kind of like a representation of telephone wires. So kind of talking about our old forms of communication in relation to our new forms of digital, internet. And from that I got contacted by a gallery to start, to do a solo show. And so I put together a solo show titled Capacity. And it was just playing, it was more just fun and free for me. Making big pieces, this piece is over there, making big pieces that were me pushing the boundaries of what I would wear, because it's big, and also playing and how I want to play with the material that I'm working with. So starting to articulate it and making the forms and interlocking them, and but still making something that is wearable, and I think comfortable words. It's still really light, and so when you see the piece, it's very, you hang it up and hold it, it's very 3D again. When you wear it on your body, it becomes 2D, and it drapes. This is my bisected cones piece, which is over there, and again, just adding in, playing with very mathematical. So everything is graduated from the top to the bottom, and each piece gets gradually larger, and the length gets a little bit larger, so it forms around your neck, but then it has like this a lot going on down here. And I started adding in little pieces of some colorful wire that I was playing with, so I would add in little touches of lavender with steel, or a touch of olive green. And it's really subtle, you don't notice it, but I just think it adds a little depth to the piece. This is a long Mobius strip, basically. It can be worn like this, but what I really intended was it to be worn folded, so that it would lay on your body, and it was comfortable. It's just a big, it's a really simple idea, really simple shape, but it's, I think has a lot of interest. And this is triple Mobius strip links interlocking. So this is something I had to play with a lot, because I didn't, as I manipulate and I'm making things, it's changing as I make it. I'll draw out my sketches, but it never turns out like the sketches. Like, I have to be flexible as I'm making it, because as you wear things and as you put them on while I'm making them, some things do not work or look good. So I had to, like change some of the elements up here. Like this was going to be a Mobius strip, but it didn't sit right. I couldn't get in there small enough to make the actual Mobius strip shape work. And then doing just some, as always, I just couldn't do neck pieces, so I had to do a whole collection that worked together. So I made bracelets that look like little cages to me. And then playing with tubing, and then using the wire as the structure, or tubing. And then I have some of this colorful work I'm going to talk about in the store. So I started doing some limited production work. My friend had contacted me. These are some huge earrings that are like this big. Next one. So my friend had contacted me. She's in a electro synth pop band, and they were performing, and they had no idea what to wear, and they had no idea what their look was going to be. So I said, I like this. I can do this for you. So why don't I make you pieces that you wear on stage that you can perform in, that relate to you as a group. So their name is Painted Face, and they're fun, and the music's fun and light. So I wanted to make huge, colorful pieces that they can wear that were still comfortable for them to perform in. Because they couldn't do anything with any bracelets, because no rings, no bracelets. So it had to be something that was eye-catching on stage, but they could still have movement and feel comfortable wearing. So I developed this line of work that was really colorful. more earrings, and not for them all to wear, but more to sell. And so I'm going to go through, this is actually one of my lookbooks. So this is my friend who's the keyboardist, but we ran around the Met one Sunday morning after one of her performances and dressed her up and made her wear all the jewelry and took pictures. It was wonderfully fun, and it was just a way for me to like tie in what she was doing and what I'm doing, and then create a line that was marketable as well. Next one. So you can see there's just some like taking those huge earrings that they were wearing on stage and developing more and playing more shape. And again, very geometric, which relates to my capacity work. But I titled this work Axis Mundi, which is the point between heaven and hell. So kind of playing with a lot of religious, for me, a lot of religious, some structural iconography. So thinking about like totems and this one. Like these are ziggurats, I call them, which is the Mayan temples. Next one. Next one. Next one. This one's titled Totem. Even though it's not like related, it's not a totem pole. Something that kind of made me feel that it was related to a totem or something totemic. This is called a column, like a Greek column. This is the ziggurat, but it's upside down. So it's a reverse temple, basically. So from that, I got a lot of interest in my work from the fashion world. And so I was asked, I applied for this fashion show where they would provide the models and the makeup and the hairstyling. And then all I had to do was show up with jewelry. And from that, I got accepted. And I had a show during Fall Fashion Week, and it's kind of the first time I had actually taken my pieces and thought about them, people wearing them, and thought about the styling of the pieces and how it would work, and what people would wear, and being really focused on that. And I had never been as focused on that. It was more about making the piece, and I know people are wearing it, but I hadn't really done that much pictures of people wearing it. So then now I have to do an actual live show where people are wearing it and interacting with it and coming up, and the models are standing there and they have to talk about it and how they feel about wearing it. So I'm going to do a little clip of the show, and in the back is the music from Painted Face. So I kind of was like it's all tied in. So it was really, really fun. And it was something it was really stressful too, because we had to change all the models in this back room that was like 6 models and me, like this big. So it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. It was a performance. It was this performance because I felt like I had taken the jewelry and then brought it to another, it became a performance piece as well. And I thought it was just so exciting and so fun. It's so interesting to see people in the audience and what their thoughts were like. Yeah, I never seen your work like that, or I never thought about your work like that. And from that, I got contacted by Fab.com, and they are a website kind of like Gilt.com. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It's like discounts. You can get. They work with different makers to get like a slight discount. So I started offering some of my sold like, 70 pieces in 3 days. It was awesome. Go on. And this is, so I was doing that. I also got contacted because of my fashion show by Echo the Mini Fashion Fund, and they had asked me to apply for their grant to put on a even larger fashion show during New York Fashion Week. And so I think it's nice to see that recognition. It's completely different. It's funny that it's such a completely different field from art jewelry, when really the work is not necessarily that much. I don't know, I find I look at things all the time. I look at things, when I was speaking earlier when we were talking informally about the work, I look at work from everywhere. I'm looking at art jewelry, I'm looking at production jewelry, designer jewelry, and Tiffany, and Cartier, and looking at music videos a lot and what people are wearing in them, because it's huge and interesting and costumey, and I think it's it's so exciting what people are doing. So for them to ask me was really great. I became a semi-finalist for that, but did not become a finalist. But it just made me feel like what I was doing was getting some recognition in that world. Then going back, I was still making other pieces. So I made these, some more one-of-a-kind pieces, kind of playing again with shape and material and trying different things. So this is all rigid, like this is all formed, fabricated in copper. But then all the parts in between are all the nylon steel, hand beaded with copper, like Indian small, fine rondelettes. So it has the 2D and 3D again in the piece, but just trying it in different ways and trying to explore, like, experiment with materials. And that kind of work led me to doing another production line that's all done with ball chain. And so this is all done with ball chain and tubing. And so this is my new collection I'm presenting right now for this season. A lot of it is just really simple materials. We're trying to put them together in an interesting way. So using the connections of the connectors from the ball chain to connect the pieces and go to this one. So this is like what Katie's wearing. It's all formed, it's all fabricated and connected with these kind of mundane connectors for ball chain. But I think it still has a lot of interest. And then again, I'm using the nylon coated steel, kind of going back to my materials, using nylon coated steel to create the forms in between, the structure of the piece. So it still has a lot of geometry and simplicity, but when you wear it, it drapes very nicely. And again, so with this time, I decided pictures on the body and people relating to it is really important. And so I really pushed myself to do a fashion shoot, basically with the new line of it being worn. So these next series of pictures are of the pieces being worn. And it's all very simple. This is all production work, so it's all very affordably priced. But I think trying to present it in a more elevated manner each time I create a new collection. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one. Do you have any questions?
What made you decide what to submit?
with different audiences. Like, I imagine maybe that ball chain connects in a very different way than some of the other work that is.
Definitely. Well, I have like Urban Outfitters talking to me about working with them for that. So that's completely different from what I usually work with. Usually I'm working with a lot of galleries and museum stores in my work. I work with museums, like the Carnegie Museum carries my work for the production work, and they're carrying like the pearl pieces. So it is hitting different audiences, and I think that for me I don't always create pieces with the audience in mind. That's not really my intention always, but I think it really starts for me with materials. Like I bought a bunch of ball chain and tubing and just wanted to play with it and see what I could create that was interesting. And from that, this whole new line, I created this whole new line. And I think it's always about the materials for me. When I first did like the work that's in the cases, this all was born out of me playing with this nylon-coated steel and having a great time with it and doing chain making and thinking about the connections and how I can make it look elegant and articulated and drape onto the body.
No more economics.
No more, well, I do use economics a lot in my business though, so it is really helpful to have, like I think about when I'm pricing my work, it's really important to think, I create a whole calculator in Excel spreadsheet that is, I itemize every single material per piece, how much it costs, how many is in each piece. I'm very scientific about how I price things and thinking about my time and then maybe adding a margin up because of design or, special, whatever it is.
I think it's fascinating that you seamlessly seem to have integrated the business aspects and the entrepreneurial aspects with your baking. In my life, I have to spend a lot of time on the business side of arts management, and when I want to go to the creative place, sometimes I feel like I have to really separate myself physically and go far away and have a vacation to switch onto the other side of the brain. And I'm just amazed that you're able to use them almost to feed one another. And maybe it's because for you, the math and the business aspect is kind of an aspect of your art form.
Correct.
But as you become more successful and you really build your business, do you foresee a point where have you felt that conflict?
Definitely feel that. I think it's really interesting. So I'm married to an artist who is not in any way business savvy. He's not business savvy, but he ran a business. He's an animator and storyboard artist for movies. And he used to do work for games. And at some point he grew so big in his company that he was like the first thing he did was hire a producer to manage all the contracts and the invoicing and all that, because it was just, he couldn't focus enough on the work. And I think about that a lot in my own work because I'm doing it all. I'm doing all the invoicing and the marketing. So I'm not only doing the making, designing, thinking about the production, how I can replicate things. I'm also thinking about where I'm going to sell it at, how I'm going to market this. I have to be on at these. I just finished New York Gift Show for the new ball chain stuff, and I have to think about how I can talk to buyers and what they are looking for when they're speaking to me. Like, how are they approaching it? And they're coming from a different. They're thinking about things like space of price per case and where the things that I don't even know. So I think it's really all an education for me, and I feel like I'm still learning. I don't think I'll ever stop learning, honestly, anything about in design, selling, or any of those aspects, or the business aspect either. It's all evolving together. And I think it's all really important to have a focus on, to have a viable business and be an artist and be successful. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. think it's just fun to try them on.
And I also wanted to make an announcement that Kira and Albert, who are hosts this weekend, have brought some wine that has just been bottled. So if anyone would like a glass of wine after the lecture, please